Hello everyone, I'm Nives Torresi, moderator for TESOL Italy, and I would like to welcome you to this session of TESOL Italy's 47th convention. Our speaker for this session is Luciano De Luca. Luciano is a contract professor at the University G. D'Annunzio of Chieti and Pescara. He is specialized in English phonetics and phonology. He is also a simultaneous and consecutive translator-interpreter for English, Spanish, and French. He is the founder of the IsE English IsE course based on the personalized phonetic method. His skills include personal branding, public speaking, ghostwriting, spin doctoring. The title of Luciano's session is I Sound English IsE, a personalized phonetic teaching method. Luciano, the floor is yours.
All right, thanks, and I welcome everybody in here. I'll be already sharing with you. So let's give it a start. And when it comes to phonetic education for EFL or ESL students, we are dealing with a thorny issue. Discovering the functioning of one's own phonatory apparatus means transforming our corporeal reality into a conscious tool for language learning. Perceiving one's own phonetic articulation abilities means, in fact, understanding the language in a new perspective, no longer through reasoning alone, but also through our body. When the I sound, with the I sound English method, ISE, the approach becomes much different from the usual glottodidactics method, especially from the one that is much in vogue in my country, Italy, where our domestic ministerial approach follows the regulatory system. When it comes to learning a semitonal language, such as English, we first all need to raise the students' awareness over the phonetic approach. And this is particularly true for the Italian students who are not much trained for that in schools, let alone in university in general. Let's say, in fact, the reflection starts from the vague phonetic phonological approach in our domestic ministerial regulatory system that, on the contrary, it is diligently taken into account into the European model. The sound dimension of the language has been neglected in our traditional grammar translation binomial teaching, which focuses on formal language learning as a system. The I Sound English educational system instead proposes the didactics of articulatory phonetics as a tool for learning a semitonal language such as English, as I said before. It is not about the exclusion of pronunciation from our ministerial learning objectives, but rather the failure to develop a teaching methodology that, considering the poor results achieved by our students throughout the schooling years, summing up to between 13 and 18 years, it should be claimed by students as an inviolable human right. This process, the didactics of articulatory phonetics, is mostly ignored by textbooks, whereas some rare handbooks deal with the issue more deeply, and the issue is implicitly delegated to the professionalism of teachers who cannot just rely on the learner's natural talent, where, let's say, where one is supposed to be able not only to discriminate non-native sounds, but also to capable of uttering native-like oral sounds. So considered some exceptions in my country, Italy, as I said, phonetic didactics as an educational value is lagging behind in filling the pedagogical gap in EFL students. So to undermine in this way, or at least weaken their future professional development. According to the most respected international scientific literature in the glottodidactic field, in order to gain proper literacy skills, I mean, acoustic and perceptual auditory ones, the objective is not the mere pronunciation. The objective is not the mere pronunciation, let's say X has to be said like this, rather the physical articulation of the sound. To say X, one should do this. That is the point. So, this is, let's say after briefly, let's put it this way, I've introduced you briefly my today's topic, but before guiding you in a, let's say in a sort of an active participation in our little phonetic workshop, let me be profoundly, let's say, thankful to the TESOL Italy, who has much welcomed my iSound English methodological proposal that I actually preach both in my private school in Pescara, Abruzzo, Italy, and at the Gabriele D'Annunzio University of Chieti, Pescara, where I work as I was presented like I work as an English professor. But also, you know, this is something that here you see some logos and have ideas of what I do, but enough has been said by the great presentation made by Nieves. Let's put it this way now. As I just said, let's all give it a little taste to the iSound English method I teach. As a child, you learn by listening to sounds, and then little by little, you learn to repeat them. When you grow up, on the contrary, especially if you want to learn English, to repeat the sounds you hear, you must first learn to pronounce them. But to do so, you must educate your apparatus to emit the right sounds that will give semantic identity to the words you utter if they are expressed correctly. Sounds are the access codes for understanding each other in an interlocution, in any kind of interlocution. The skills you need to achieve, are these in this order. Normally, that's what I call the 7 skills. It's like you start with phonetics, pronunciation, then you go build your vocabulary, then you start reading, then you need to know how to write, then you start listening, and then speak, and grammar is at the very end of it. Okay, but in the end, that is what phonetic study is all about. To rectify, maybe this is too big as an image. Let me just make it smaller. Probably this is better now. All right. As I said, to rectify your phonological sieve. In English, if an English learner, and in particular, if it is a foreign adult, does not work on rectifying one's phonatory instrument, its phonatory instrument to emit sounds, errors, misunderstandings, and misinterpretation will inevitably arise when exchanging information between speakers. In fact, let's see how we use the language. Here we can all read that according to linguistic pedagogy, the main developmental moments of each individual pass through the vocabulary that is acquired through diligent use of the dictionary, and then in turn allows for good lexicalization. It has the ability to give the correct sound to that particular term through the musical instrument known as the mouth. But let's get down to business. Let's say that we need to know a bit more about what it's all about. Pronunciation, as we all know, is what is after phonetics. But at the beginning, it's easy to say at our school, we work on pronunciation. That's not the proper way to put it. We should first start with phonetics, and then we end up having the right pronunciation. In fact, the phonetic learning process that enables the production of sounds first and then the comprehension of sounds later is often approached by the apprentice with an initial sense of unease, wonder, and disbelief. The profound disparity between spoken English and Italian lies not only in the different quantity, numbers of sounds, as we know English have 44 sounds, but in the almost total absence of corresponding sounds between the two languages. I first want to make this clear that in my teaching, for a well-grounded reason, which I'm not explaining in this short presentation, I chose the Cambridge English, which is one of, as I can see here, as you can all see here, is one of the 32 major regional accents in the UK. Once the model language on which studies are based has been declared for an Italian native speaker, EFL or ESL, as I said before, the starting grid is represented by the IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet, as well as we all know. The phonetical, as you can see here, these are the British English and then the American English, as you can see. But I focus on this on the left upper and on the left-hand side, on the upper left-hand side, and then the right-hand on the right upper side, and then the lower side for the British English. You can see more in detail here. You can see this. That's the way it has to be approached. Okay, as I said, I was saying the phonetic educational objective with the iSound English method is to bridge, first of all, the phonemic distance existing between the Italian mother tongue speaker and the English mother tongue speaker through the acquisition of each single monophthong and diphthong vowel sound together with all consonants, and then with their articulation within words first and phrases later, to be trained accurately by means of a truly painstaking, personalized articulatory training, a sort of a speech therapy. And this is where you need to work on the organs of speech, okay, properly as a speech therapist. Talking about vowels in general, the importance of uttering them with a maximum sound correspondence to the international phonetic model is given by the example of the so-called lexical homophonies. This is the case of with dysphongisms. Many English bad words let's say many English bad words form minimal pairs with commonly used words, such as we can see here on the slide, shit and sheet. You can see the phonemes here next to the words, bitch and beach, piss and peas, cock and coke, cunt and can't. On the other hand, we immediately see that the first consonant differences emerge from the countless phonetic combinations. For example, just let's take the simple orthographic TH, which allows us to distinguish the phonemes and one is called theta, the first one, and the second one, the delta, depending on the term next to which they are found, or also the multiple phonological distinctions in words such as is and eyes, respectively. In addition, continuing to observe statistical phenomena, another example for a consonant is represented by the ability to perceptually recognize the nasal consonants produced in isolation. Here we see studies that have reported on the percentages in the English languages. For example, here we see the M is recognized at 96%. The N is recognized at 56%. And the N is recognized at 12%. From the percentages highlighted here, it can be inferred that when the above seen consonants are produced in a locution sequence, the capacity of perceptual recognition may decrease further, And this is not of a small matter, as a matter of fact. This is something that makes the whole difference. And but let's more see if there's any question right on the spot, but we'd rather be going for questions later, because first of all, I would like to make it clearer for you what is the method like. Let's put it in let's describe the method in few objectives. Let's say the first elementary objective for speaking a new language is undoubtedly the semantic approach, which can never be separated from the phonetic one that constitutes its foundation, especially for the so-called tonal or semitonal languages. And in particular, for adults, the language learning sequence first goes through the studying, the practicing of each single phonemic sound, monophthongs, diphthongs, and consonants, as we saw before, then through the articulation in a new word formation, then through the constructing of their orthophonetic correspondence with the orthography. And for this, I created a graphophonemic chart, as you can see here. For example, here I have the I sound, okay, and I have several phonemic correspondences, okay. Then, for example, let's take O, okay, we have O, we have O, U. These are just to give you an idea of how many these can be. So this is the graphophonemic, as I was saying. And finally, through the semantic mnemonic acquisition of terms, synonyms and antonyms on top of everything, so to acquire an initial terminological stock made of nouns and verbs, where the latter initially can also be learned in the infinitive form, i.e., without conjugating them in their modes and tenses. One is a second objective consists of reading foreign languages texts, applying the meticulously learned phonetic rules, starting with a simple phonetically correct pronunciation of short sentences up to more extended readings of phrases with the correct intonation, then with rhythm given by the too often neglected punctuation and the right interpretation. So in fact, you can see here, that's what I call the levels of reading. You have a phonetic rule, then you have fluid, then you have following the punctuation, as I said. But here we have a roadmap in the end, You see, 1 second, because I have to make this a little smaller for you to better see this. So the third objective entails a delicate, long, and arduous learning process. It deals with articles, pronouns, adjectives, adverbs, and speech connectors, linkers or connectives. Speech connectors are linkers or connectives. Speech connectors, in particular, represent the real stumbling block of the English language. As we all know, connectives are a few. For example, the simple prepositions, whereas linkers are varied and numerous, and they are used depends on the cultural level of the speaker. In fact, they measure the consistent and coherent fluency in a syntactical, flawless speech. Before I said that connectives are few, and that is true, but in most cases, for Italian learners, they become almost undistinguishable when heard, especially at the beginning of one's studies. These are short words, as you know, but these short words bear short corresponding phonetic sounds that are too often mispronounced, syncopated, misplaced, elided, assimilated into the next, and who knows what else, being always unpredictable and totally up to the speaker in the way that it chooses, how to pronounce them. And we have several here that are very simple, as you can see, but I made just a little representation here. For example, let's get the, for example. The can be said the, or the, or the, or the, or d. Let's take of, or, of. You see, all these, what it really creating trouble into for the learner. So alas, it's not enough to know them all by heart. In fact, this is only the basis which to start from. Being aware of how to pronounce these terms in their many different ways, and even more, being able to recognize them when pronounced by a native speaker who may not be phonetically orthodox becomes the main difficulty in learning such a semi-tonal language as English. For ESL learners, many of the phonetic aberrations in input and output occur at this opaque juncture of learning. To overtake this delicate step, it takes a lot of practice and a great enhancement in our perceptual skills, auditory skills. The fourth is the next stage that concerns one of the four skills in language knowledge, namely the listening of sounds. We can go through media, radio, TV, dictations, so to practice one's perceptual ability. At the fifth stage, it concerns the interlocution, as we can see here in the funny picture, in this funny image. Being able to read in a language does not necessarily mean understanding speeches, nor does it mean being able to speak well. At this point, once one has firmly acquired the aforementioned linguistic parameters, nouns, verbs, speech, connectors, correct phonetic pronunciation, the prosodic aspect of words and sentences with the right intonation, fluidity with rhythm, given by the punctuation, and a good interpretation which gives the stylistic imprint to one's utterance, then you are now ready to fully use the language, and you can finally exchange ideas through interlocution. Only at this stage, though. So except for the orthography part, the writing, which the method IsE deals with when accomplishing the first elementary objective, the entire path follows no more and no less the natural language learning process that have followed since our childhood, which gradually accompanied us up to the threshold of primary school, from which we have learned the first organic rules of our language. So now, that's why the sixth and final phase deals with the learning of grammar in a regulative manner, as much as we learned it in our mother tongue when we went to primary school. Not forgetting, though, that before entering school, we have already been dealing with it in an inductive, intuitive manner. That's why the IsE method takes grammar into consideration only at the end of the road. By contrast, the Italian-Latin tradition places a lot of emphasis on grammar, on rules, on the formal study of the linguistic structures. This certainly works for the dead language, like Latin, but not so much for an active, alive and kicking language, such as English. To tell the truth, it is quite the school program made by our Ministry of Education that should be completely overhauled. In my opinion, the school education system seems to lead teachers to treat the in-class subject matters to be taught as office work, rather than considering themselves as a fundamental support to educate the citizens of the future. Let's say a few words more. The personalized phonetic method, I Sound English. Let me give you another slide. Is a physical experience based on the patient conscious construction of acoustic articulation and perceptual auditory production of sounds, where the students will be able to know how exactly the sound of English language are articulated within its own phonatory apparatus consisting of mouth and ears. It should be noted that for a non-native speaker, the imitative listening and repeat criterion is not sufficient to learn a semitonal language, and not a phonetic one, such as Italian, without having the learner trace the basic phonetic articulatory element of any uttered sound. In addition, it's noteworthy the pupil's proprioceptive experience that necessarily will have to be shared with the rest of the class, creating inevitably that mixture of embarrassment and hilarity due to the breaking of personal taboos. So unveiling the sense of intimacy, showing the possible clumsy behavior of one's own body, enhancing instead by contrast that the trainees' mutual acquaintance and potentially developing and quality interpersonal relationships. So from my experience, it shows that the hard work has to be done, but it's very much inclusive as a work to be done in class. To make a quick conclusion, not a hasty one, but a quick conclusion, in essence, we need to recover the vision of sheer communication made up of words, especially oral words, where the interlocutors have access as much as possible to the same phonetic codes, so as to place themselves on the same symmetrical relational linguistic plane. The hope remains that at long last, even in Italy, the semitonal language, such as English, can be learned in a more natural and effective way, so to have the new generation of Italian native speakers capable of aligning themselves with the high qualitative level of linguistic preparation and efficiency nowadays found in many foreign countries. On the other hand, for the now adults, humility, awareness, and acceptance should be recovered through the being re-educated in learning the English language, starting from the vocalic and consonant phonemes training at the basis of the much more renowned pronunciation, so to finally avoid the acoustic and perceptual illusions that undermine, more or less consciously, the full linguistic code symmetry between EFL, ESL, and English native speakers. So I really thank you for your patiently bearing with me during this a bit too lengthy I Sound English method presentation. Thank you, everybody. If there's any who wants to ask questions, I'm there for you. Questions are allowed. and I'm welcome them.
People can open their mics, just activate their mics. It's been activated for you. You can open your mics or your webcams and speak directly with Luciano. Thank you.
Two other things, whether the presentation has been very exhaustive or you're kind of shy. You might as well open your mic.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure. Tiziana.
Yes, hi. Can you, have you seen any improvements in your students by using this method?
Myself? Are you asking me?
Yeah.
I wish I could.
Have you used your method, you know? Have you seen any improvements?
Oh my God, it's like, this is something that really is what I'm proud of, in the sense that I have students that I take from point A to point B in just, I would say, in few months. I'm not talking about years, I'm talking about months. And this is what makes it worth it. I mean, because to me, it's extremely rewarding, but for them, it's extremely interesting for the learning side. And for those who have no clue about the English language, it's a good start. And for those who have already a great knowledge of it, it's a great restart.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Interesting.
All right. Someone else?
There's a question in the chat. I'll read it out to you. by Maria Alexandrovna. She says she would like to know, how much time do you dedicate to teaching pronunciation in your classes?
Oh, well, I mean, normally it takes not more than a few lessons to give you all the tools, but then it takes it on the student's ability, whether they might take a few months, as I said, up to lifetime if they never really get down to this. But they have the right tools, and all it takes is practice. I'm there for the students in order to be, as a speech therapist, as I said, and I align their posture, their mouth posture. So I, through the help of the hearing of the sound and through the movement of their mouths, which are describing whether they are doing the right movements, whether they are doing the right phonetization, then it's all about that. Is the correcting, as I said in my presentation, the phonological SID, and it takes from a very little amount of time to several months. It's all depending on the application, the diligent student as opposed to a non-diligent one. More
Good
questions?
evening, Professor De Luca. I'm Roberta from
Hi, Roberta.
IT.
Great to meet you.
I just would like to ask you, using phonetic symbols has always helped me a lot to associate the sound and to distinguish different vowel and consonant sounds. But thinking about the students, because they start learning English since when they are children now, from nursery school onward. So when would it be appropriate to start showing them phonetic symbols and associating sounds with symbols so that they can more easily distinguish English sounds?
No, I thank you very much for your question. I have a 6-year-old child, and I have a lot of fun with him, and just showing him, I mean, letting him hear the sounds. That was what I've been doing for the last 6 years, up until now that he's started primary school. And now comes the problem, because at school, they're now teaching, because he's doing English in primary school. And now comes the problems where teachers, I mean, they don't use the phonetic approach. They start with the pronunciation stuff. And but he is like, he hasn't learned. I didn't want to teach him the language because it wasn't appropriate. I was just wanted to repeat sounds. I wanted just to let him hear sounds. And so far, he has get used to some strange sounds, let's put it this way, that the puppy does every now and then. But now it's not the very beginning. It would be great if the teacher in elementary school would show these symbols as presenting them as like they're making sounds as if it was a little game, okay? And they go along with seeing symbols, describing the symbols, and see what kind of sound it might come out of it, okay? But that's not an easy stuff. It needs to be really well trained, the teacher himself, the teacher itself. But this is another issue, though. And normally, at the beginning, it will be a good way to approach it. It's like ludendo docere, in Latin would say. It's like starting with fun, having enjoy the symbols and describing them and see what kind of sound it could come out with. Because letters, as compared to symbols, have totally another function. A symbol is more of a creative style. Symbols are more for, that opens your mind, whereas a letter, and it's kind of, I wouldn't say it narrows your mind down, but it still is, it equals, a letter equals something. A symbol equals, of course, a sound, but it's more creative as an image, first of all, and that's the number of possibilities that you can entail out of this. But then later on, once you grow up, once you grow up, then will be the right moment really to start working on symbols and see the proper correspondence of sounds. If I answered correctly, otherwise I apologize for this. If you maybe...
Yes, thank you so much. Let's say maybe starting from Scuola Media, it would be...
Oh, that would be great. That would be great. Actually,
the best time to start.
It's a good time. It's a very good time. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good time to start in Scuola Media. But at the beginning in Scuola Elementare, they do the basic sounds, and they will be great to start with already. At Scuola Media, you can already do the right job, the proper job. But listen, but this is something that it's done, and I do also to university English professors. Okay, so this is really for everyone who would like to go through phonetics first and really adjust pronunciation the proper way.
I do think that phonetics is the basics of the language, because if you can't, language basically is for communication, and if you can't speak, that is a big problem.
Yeah, not only you can't speak, it's like, imagine language as a code. If you and I, we speak different codes, we don't really grasp each other. But think about, like, most Italians normally go this way. They say, oh gosh, I speak English. Yes, I've studied English for so many years. But the one thing is, like, when they speak on TV, or when I hear the radio, something I miss. It's strange though, because maybe they speak too fast. Well, the answer is the speed of a language is reckoned on the number of syllables spoken in a second. Okay, this is the reference to see how fast a language is. Well, I tell you that Italian, I mean, the first of all is Japanese. The first in the classification is Japanese, the fastest language in the world. I mean, out of those known, not out of the 7,000 languages that are existing in the world. I'm talking just about those that are mostly known in the world. I'd say Japanese is the fastest. Then Italian is the fourth. English is the ninth fastest language in the world. So English language is slower than Italian. So imagine that. It's just about phonetics. It's not about speed.
Yes, that is the main problem.
That is the main problem. I mean, us Italians, we don't have this approach. And that's what I created this, to start doing it the right way.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barbara.
There aren't any in the chat. If anyone would like to open their mic and ask, we have a few minutes left. 5 minutes left, exactly.
Let's take the courage. Your questions are vital. Maybe there wasn't a big audience to listen to this webinar. It's about the teaching of this. Everybody knows about phonetics. Everybody has heard about phonetics. They all know the importance of phonetics, but it's all about how to teach this. It's really where it makes the difference. To teach this properly gives a great, rewarding process and great results, rewarding results. It's amazing. I see this out of my students, and I have so many. And it's coming out more and more. Tiziana, Angela, I see names. Antonio, Grazia, Maria, Milena, Marisa. There are many, though. I thought there were less. Rosa, questions, please. If you're still there.
Okay, can I ask you another question?
Thank you, Tiziana.
Okay. What are the biggest difficulties that Italian students have while speaking English, in your opinion?
Okay, let's say I had a girlfriend from Holland, and this was like some years ago. And one time, I remember I would call her up on the phone because the distance, at the time I was living in Italy, every now and then, and a great relationship, very hectic, very running relationship. But the good side was that when I would call her, most of the times was her brother answering me. Her brother was as young as 12 years, as a 12-year-old boy who would answer me in proper, correct English. Then I was always asking myself, how come I don't have any 12-year-old Italian boy who can be that fluent in in English? Then I said, are we stupid? We're not. Normally, we are coming from our Renaissance. The 500 Renaissance made this country most renowned all over the world, as we all know. So I said, we don't come from stupid, let's say, heritage. So I think it must be a problem somewhere else, because I can tell you that 99% of Italians don't have this. So how come this? As I said in my presentation, all this comes out of the regulatory system made, and it's like decided by the ministerial, it's the ministerial approach. That shows that we're not studying Italian as we English as we should, because we're studying English. Sorry, I make all these mistakes. We are studying English as if we were studying Latin with all the rules, as if we were studying Greek. We are studying an alive and kicking language such as English. And this has to be taught in a totally different way. The main difficulty that Italians have, it would be just the fact that we don't have the habit of readjusting our phonatory system, our mouth. The phonatory apparatus is mouth and ears, okay? But normally we believe that we adapt our sounds, our Italian SIB, our Italian phonological SIB, to the English language. I'll give you a quick example, and this will be hopefully enough for you, because I know words are too many, but a good example will give you the right idea. Look at this. Oggi è una bella giornata e voglio andare al mare. I say this in English, as 95% of Italians would say it, and then I say the same sentence, the same phrase in English, proper English. Okay, look at this. I mean, listen to this. Today, it's a beautiful day, and I want to go to the beach. Okay, this is what I hear 95% of cases. This is correct. There's no English grammar mistake, because we all have studied English grammar. We all have studied the language throughout all our schooling years. But the thing is that we're not speaking English. Today, it's a beautiful day, and I want to get to the beach. What makes it the difference out of these two sentences? The fact that I've used 44 sounds, which are the phonetic sounds of the British English IPA, International Phonetic Sound alphabet, whereas in the other phrase that I spoke with Italian sounds, which are only 22. So I've not only have used half of the sounds, but I've used sounds that have nothing to do with the English ones. We don't have, for example, in English, we don't have the letter A. We have two sounds reminiscing.
Luciano, sorry to interrupt. There was Maria Alexandrovna with her hand up, but they're going to close the session. So just let me thank everyone for coming. I would like to thank Luciano and all the participants on behalf of TESOL Italy for taking part in this session. The next session, the closing session, will be at 7 p.m. Certificates of attendance will be available to download from the website at the end of the convention. If we have 1 second from Maria, would you like to say your question?
Yeah, so my question was, I'm trying to teach my students pronunciation through the phonetic sounds, phonetic symbols. I try to teach them how to read the dictionary. Okay, but I still don't have big results. I don't know if you can share your experience in this.
Thank you, Maria. It's not about, I mean, the results come, they come after a real digesting of the correct way of uttering the sounds. So I don't know the way you teach them. It's all about that. I mean, the proper teaching, I'm not saying that I teach well. I'm not saying this at all. I'm saying I don't know the way you teach it, because the way you teach it, probably there's something that needs to be rectified. I don't know. I say something because it's all about as a speech therapy in the end. It's just not. It's nothing to do much with the English language. It's just the way you adjust your phonatory apparatus. It's a very painstaking, very accurate job that you need to do on each single mouth, on each single student, because in there you need to see where this person is doing such or such other movement, and then whether you can help him out or help her out in rectifying their position. It's all about what you listen, what you're able to hear from what he is uttering. That is very important. It's a very delicate, extremely delicate job, that it's not just about how it's written on books that you need to know what to do. It's much more than that. Is whether you can help the guy out or the girl out in doing this, or you can't, because all handbooks, more than textbooks, are talking about the phonetic teaching. The point is this: how you teach these sounds coming out of those symbols. It's all there. It's something that I can't really show you here in this situation, but I wish I could. It would be my enormous pleasure to show you what exactly needs to be done. It cannot be really said in this very scanty little time that I have to show you what would be the best way, to my opinion, to do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
Sorry, Professor De Luca, one last question. Do you have seminars in Chieti for teachers that maybe we can attend, because we are in Chieti, we are not far away from Chieti.
Next Friday, which is Friday 25th, I start a course parallel to my regular course at university for 100 students from the CAST. You know what the CAST is? Central, whatever it is an acronym for something. And I start the class out there, and I'm going to leave your number.
They're going to close the session, so can we just agree that Luciano can leave his details maybe in the lobby chat for anyone who wants to catch up? Okay,
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming.
You said that the road to happiness was long and winding. You said that the forest would get dark, and and that the ground could shift. Here up on this hill we're climbing. No matter how close we get, we're still so far. But I trust we'll find the clearing. I'm trusting the trail. No matter what we're feeling, there's one way we can't fail. Let's just keep hiking. Let's plant our feet. Let's just keep hiking. Keep hiking with me. Hold my hand, baby. Keep hiking with me. You said the road up to success was an impossible test unless we had some sort of map. And I could feel it in my chest just as our feet begged us to rest. I think this just might be the end of that. But I said I trust we'll find the clearing. I'm trusting the trail.